Mace Windu, quite possibly the best swordsman of the Jedi during his era, a revolutionary of combat on and off the battlefield. His advancements legendary and admired by other members of the Order, but what is the backbone behind such a legendary duelist? Today we will break down and analyze the fighting style of Mace Windu. Form 7, considered by most as the most aggressive and dangerous of all lightsaber fighting styles, the form that even the Jedi feared and stayed clear of, seeing it as an easy path to the dark side. A form that necessitates emotion and ferocity be involved, fueled by this flame, a form not fit for an order that warns against such things. But there were some Jedi who believed it could be mastered, not in its pure form, but be altered and changed into a weapon for the light. Mace Windu was a noble and powerful Jedi, but he felt within him something a Jedi should not. He felt inner darkness, a love for combat and victory, enjoyment of standing over an opponent triumphant. This was a feeling for a time Windu feared. For years, Windu saw others with darkness rise as Jedi, but be consumed by their anger, locking it in a cage and allowing it to grow unchecked. It was this feeling that resulted in the study of Form 7, the ferocity form. Windu saw Juya as a form that required great skill and energy, more so than maybe any other lightsaber form. Mace witnessed this and pondered on it. How could he use a form that requires such anger and not be overtaken by the darkness? Mace eventually came to the realization he could incorporate the form in a more creative way, as yes, it required aggression and anger, but it did not have to be the user's own. Mace discovered he could use his opponent's anger to fuel his own form, letting it pass through him. He saw that the form was as much about what occurred mentally as physically. He had to accept the darkness through his body and force it back out, creating a loop that if used correctly would result in a Darksider essentially fighting against their own might. This variant of Form 7 was called Vaapad. In practice, Vaapad appeared wild, with it entailing a series of attacks that seemed unconnected and the complete absence of coherent sequences. To some, the form looked amateur and wild, with no control over each movement of the blade. When worked up, however, the flurry of unconnected movements became its greatest strength. It was impossible to anticipate a practitioner's next move, because it did not exist until it occurred. Each movement was so fast and unpredictable. When at its full extent, it became unclear how many lightsabers were in play. Mace even commented this to his rival while using the form, that it was Vaapad, and asking him how many arms he saw. Vaapad was also very special as it could be used while unarmed, as well as quick punches and kicks, operated the same as with the blade, unpredictable and lightning fast. With his bare hands, Mace would demolish battle droids while using the form, allowing his own darkness to fully flow through him without allowing it to alter him. The co-creator of Vaapad was Sora Bulq, who eventually did turn to the dark side. When dueling Count Dooku, the Count noted the form had great potential, but that it could not be brought to its full extent without the user adopting the dark side as their own, involving and releasing all of their true anger along with their opponents. Following his fall, and truly adopting the darkness into the form, Bulq believed he had refined it, and discovered the key to use it. Mace, however, disagreed, stating Bulq had lost sight of the true objective of the form. Vaapad was not about surrendering to the dark side, it was the opposite. Some believed it was the pinnacle of a frenzy, and losing oneself in a fight, but Windu saw it facilitated control, the ability to touch what is most damaging, and use it, but never allow it to corrupt you. The form that appeared most out of control required the most of it. According to some Jedi, Vaapad and Juya was the only form that could break the defenses of a Surisu master, and even the immense protection of the form could potentially be overwhelmed. Jedi commented that the only reason Mace was able to use the form was because he was fully aware of his darkness, accepting it as a part of who he was, and refusing to lock it in a cage and never acknowledge it. By keeping his mind on his darkness, he gained the ability to control it and learn from it. Other Jedi who attempted to use the form despised their own darkness, ashamed of its presence, and thus, it was better able to control them. It was also determined that despite many trials, Vaapad could never be truly achieved during practice and sparring. It required a hatred to be present, and the desire to strike an opponent down and gain victory. And while the emotion could be mimicked, quite dangerously I may add, it could seldom be achieved. To master Vaapad, practitioners also needed to have an established background in other forms, as if Vaapad failed, it would mean certain death. Practitioners had to grasp their magnitude, fully mastering other forms before even considering the control needed to use Form 7. Mace Windu would later teach Vaapad to his apprentice, Deepa Billaba, and he believed for a time that he had found someone more skilled with the form than he was. Unfortunately, however, the ferocity of Form VII eventually corrupted her, for a time, and the dark side took hold. On Coruscant, Grievous would display something that would shock Mace. During a duel, the cyborg began to mimic Vaapad. To Windu's absolute terror, for a time the form was achieved. Though not to its true extent, it could still be considered passable, attained only by watching a true master at work. Yoda would later note, the only way to defeat Mace or any Vaapad master would be to fall on one's use of the Force, as defeating them with skill over the lightsaber was impossible. The only way to truly defeat Mace would be to break off the confrontation and attack with abilities not lightsaber related, attempting to throw a practitioner out of the form, as it required extreme concentration. If a practitioner was truly engulfed by the form, their defeat was impossible in blade-to-blade combat. At the end, Mace stood as the only true master of Vaapad. All others who practiced the form danced too close to the flame of the dark side, but Mace always held strong. It was in large part due to Vaapad that Mace stood toe-to-toe with one of the most powerful Sith Lords of all time, and for a time was more than a match. So that was my breakdown of Mace Windu's fighting style. I'm looking at starting a new series where we take Star Wars characters and analyze their fighting forms, so if you would like to, feel free to suggest below, and be sure to leave a like on the video to indicate you want to see more like it. To make it clear, this series is not replacing my How Powerful series. I just wanted to introduce one that looks specifically at lightsaber combat, not everything else, that entails many of these legendary Sith, Jedi, and everything in between. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't yet, maybe consider subscribing to ensure you stay up to date with everything Star Wars related. If you have any other lore topics or questions you want answered, do not hesitate to tweet them at me at StupendousWave on Twitter, or leave a comment and I will try my best to answer or make a full video dedicated to that topic. Thanks again so much for watching, may the Force be with you, and have a great day.